You mentioned atheism is the belief in no God, i.e. anti-theism. What is your view on agnosticism?
So atheists perhaps would argue with the idea that it's a disbelief in God. Just to be clear on that point, they would say that they hold a non-belief in God, right? Which is kind of like trying to hide yourself so no one can attack the fact that you don't believe in God. They're like, it's not that I said there wasn't a God, I just said that I don't have a belief that there is a God, as though somehow that protects them intellectually from having to define their position, right? It's sort of a little bit of a dishonest trick, because again, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And the belief that the belief of a non-belief is the best belief to hold is still a belief. I am glad when people are willing to say that they don't know. You are so much more intellectually honest than I was during my atheist years. You are willing to say, if you're truly an agnostic, you're willing to say, I don't know. And hopefully, you're at the place where if someone were to want to have a conversation with you about it, you would be willing to have a conversation with them about that. You'd be willing to evaluate the things that they say, the evidence that perhaps they bring, have a real open conversation. I have met people that claim to be agnostic, but when you start to say, well, I have reasons that I believe in God, would you allow me to share them with you? And every reason I bring up, they're like, nope, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And then I ask them things like, well, what would be good enough? And they have no answer, is usually what happens. Or they want something so blatant, but all of the things that I said before weren't enough. And so you get to the place where you wonder, are you really agnostic? Are you really open to knowing? Are you really open to changing? Do you have that intellectual integrity where if someone were to come to you and to bring you evidence that you'd be willing to hear it? Or are you using agnosticism as a cover for, as we talked about, that desire to not be a sinner, to not be accountable to God, to not have to change your life? I have a dear friend of mine, and we go to lunch probably once a month, and he's not a believer. And he's one of my oldest friends that I'm still in touch with. We were friends in middle school. And he identifies himself as an agnostic, and we have good conversations. And he's not been convinced yet, but he is still willing to be convinced. So I think that that's a good place to be if you have a genuine curiosity and you want to know what the truth is.